During that time period, once I retired, I started my own business. My master's degree is in scientific and technical intelligence, which is just a fancy word of satellites. I work for the intelligence community, and I work where we build and design the nation's spy satellites. So I spend 3 days a week running my own business up in the Pentagon. So that's where I headed back from today. I ran for school board 4 years ago because I thought there were things that needed to be fixed on the school board. And we've tackled those problems. Most of those problems we've tackled, and a lot of them we've fixed. Just like every board, you can't hope to fix everything. You're on a board, and you've been elected, and you work through a board. Is learning how teamwork and working together. Because one person cannot accomplish anything on a board of 5. You have to get consensus. 3 people have to agree to everything you do. One vote by itself all the time doesn't get anything accomplished. So I think that one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last 4 years is building consensus among the board members to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve in the Matoaca District. And I think we've done pretty good. If you look across the 5 districts and see how Matoaca has fared in the last 4 years, with the bond referendum, we just got the Magnolia Green School approved. That was outside of the CIP. We actually got the middle school addition at Matoaca Middle School to consolidate to one campus, which was another $15 million that was not in the original plans, along with the new Matoaca. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. If you want to stand, if you're more comfortable standing, you can take the mic out of the holder. It's up to you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Carroll. I am a retired sergeant with the Chesterfield County Police Department. I too moved here from somewhere else. In 1986, I was very fortunate to get hired by the police department. Joe Pittman gave me a job. Moved down here. I started out in a Uniform Operations Bureau working as a patrol officer. I was eventually moved after 3 years to our Covert Operations Unit, and I can't tell you what we did. It was a secret. But and then after that, I worked in our Homicide Investigations Unit, and from there I got promoted to sergeant. And I served the last 19 years as a sergeant with the police department in various different roles. My last being sergeant in charge of criminal investigations. Detectives that worked out in the county investigating B&Es and larcenies and those kind of things. I got involved in the Fraternal Order Police early on as a recruit. Most of you, or some of you may know that this week is National Police Week. It was dedicated by John F. Kennedy in 1962. May 15th is National Police Week. And so I got involved when a friend of mine got killed in the line of duty. And from there, going to Washington, D.C. and seeing what the FOP did for the families of fallen officers, it became a passion of mine, so I got involved in the FOP. Part of being involved in the FOP is being active in the community and also being, I guess, essentially the voice for law enforcement, trying to make sure that we had good pay, benefits. So in 2001, I worked on a pay study committee to try and get police officers better pay. In 2008, we worked on another pay study committee to get officers better pay. And in 2018, before I retired, I worked on another study to get officers better pay. I would do say that this Board of Supervisors did pass in this past budget pay increases for our police officers, which I'm grateful for. I also became a lobbyist for the Fraternal Order Police, and so I too have had experience working down in the General Assembly and also working on legislative issues here within the county, the county ordinances. As the leader of the FOP for the state for 4 years, I had to work and lead a bipartisan organization made up of 50 lodges all across the Commonwealth. And so I know how to work on both sides of the aisle and reach consensus to get things done as a leader. I've got that experience. 30 seconds. So hopefully later on when I get another 5 minutes, I'll tell you a little more about myself and we'll talk later. Thank you.
And good evening. And it is okay to smile at me, thank you. But my name is Shawan Mason. I am from Matoaca. I'm born and raised here, went to Ettrick Elementary. If you're really from Matoaca, you know about Ettrick Elementary Annex. That's where I started kindergarten. And then from there, Ettrick Elementary, then Matoaca Middle, then I graduated, now I'm telling my age, Matoaca High School, 1993. From there, I went to the University of Virginia. There I majored and got my degree in government. And from the University of Virginia, when I graduated in 1997, I went to law school. The ambitious part of me decided to get 2 degrees at one time. So I went to T.C. Williams, University of Richmond Law School, but also went to DCU, the School of Social Work, and obtained my master's and my law degree at the same time. Once I graduated in 2001, I began and started to practice law. I focused on family and children, so which is family law, and then criminal law. That's my focus. And always my primary area of service has always been in Chesterfield. But I've been in Colonia Heights, Petersburg, Richmond, and moreover. And as an attorney, a lot of my practice has been serving the indigent. I truly believe that everyone deserves good representation. And when you're an attorney, there's a lot of responsibility there. You have to learn to resolve disputes. You have to learn to listen. You have to learn to advocate for those that are not able to advocate for themselves. You have to learn to be a solution-oriented person. And you also have to collaborate with others. Sometimes it does get somewhat messy depending on what the issue is. But at the end of the day, you have to really be able to communicate effectively and stay focused. And I found myself, particularly as a guardian ad litem for children, the voice of many children. And as a guardian ad litem, I've had the opportunity to go to most of our schools that are in the Matoaca District. There, I communicate with the teachers, I communicate with the administrators, and I also have a lot of interaction with the families. Guardian ad litem work also affords me the opportunity to work with different agencies. I work with the Department of Social Services, mental health, and then on the criminal side, I'm working with the police department. And then also I have a good working relationship with our Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And when you're an attorney, you learn how to prepare. You learn how to assess situations, you look at your pros, you look at your cons. And when you're representing different clients, whatever their needs are, that's what you have to voice. Sometimes you have to voice their needs and concerns, and it may not be popular, but that is something that I am willing to do and something that I have learned to do. I am running because, one, I have a concern about the direction that Matoaca is headed. And I've got my little 30-second warning, so you will hear more about that later. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I will ask if we can all hold applause until the end, so we don't take up time, and just as a courtesy to all the candidates. So, we're ready for the first question on our series of questions, and just so I'm straight here, I'm making notes on who goes first, second, and third. We got from the original order, so Kevin Carroll will be first, and then Shawan Mason and Rob Thompson. So, Jack?
You and again, just want to emphasize, please hold any applause until the end. Okay, the first question is about proffers. For the last several years, Board of Supervisors has approved new zoning cases allowing accelerated residential growth in the Matoaca District. County planning calculates each new rooftop costs approximately $23,000 in infrastructure needs. The proffer ordinance allows for transportation proffers up to $9,400. No proffer dollars for schools, police and fire infrastructure are now being collected. Would you vote for to alter county proffers? Let me start again. Would you vote to alter county's current proffer ordinance to provide for these infrastructure needs? How would you propose to fund these needs?
So one of the things that changed in the General Assembly was a piece of legislation that changed what localities could use proffers for. One of the things that, so that's why you've seen a reduction in use of proffers for other things other than roads. So what else is going on with that? Well, we've also seen some of the older zoning cases that have been approved that are now, people are coming back, developers are coming back and trying to get those proffers reduced so they can get that money back, as opposed to keeping it for the county to pay for the roads. If you look at Otterdale Road as the example out here, years ago, there were profit money set aside to fix Otterdale from Hull Street to Woolridge. They're finally gonna get it done. So that's why it's shifted away from using proffers for other infrastructures. And of course, builders, they want to save as much money as possible. But talking with some of the developers, they realize that there's a reasonable amount of money that they have to spend as a developer to pay for these infrastructure, such as upgrades on roads. We have to look at the budget holistically all across the board and set a tax rate that's gonna pay for our schools, pay for our public safety. And you would hope that could be just done through growth, and we would hope that we could do it through growth. But we've seen that there are a lot of needs that did not get taken care of. And so it's something that needs to be looked at as far as the proffers. You know, if you know what proffers do, they artificially inflate the cost of your house. But reasonable costs should be incurred by the developers to make these changes so the roads get fixed. That's the problem we've had out here, that the infrastructure has not been kept up with, and so it costs money. Those decisions need to be made. Thank you.
I think when dealing with proffers, number one, little consideration should be given in reference to what's best for the developers. I think that a huge concern of the citizens that I've spoken to the Matoaca District is that the developers are having more of an impact on the laws that are being made and the decisions that are being made than the citizens. Whenever we're dealing with proffers, we need to look at how are we best able to serve our schools? How are we best able to fund public service? How are we best able to put funding where the citizens are asking for it versus in the developers who are trying to use their influence because they have large pockets? And when we do look at the proffers and what they're used for, you should have a voice in what's going to be behind your house. You should have a voice in the size of your school. You should have a voice in how the proffers are being utilized. And so that is definitely something that I would, if I am selected as the candidate for the Matoaca District, that I would definitely take into huge consideration the voice of the people. What do you want? How do you suggest that that matter is handled? And then that's how I would move forward.
Mr. Thompson.
Yeah,
You don't touch this.
yeah, I'm gonna touch down low.
We don't want him to get us sick.
So, you know, we saw proffers firsthand, because when the proffers were reduced, we lost about $3.5 million a year in the school budget that came directly from proffers. One of the problems, when the proffers went down from $20,000, none of the house prices went down $10,000. Matter of fact, some of the house prices climbed another 3 to 4% above that, and that difference in $21,000 and $19,000 and down to $9,400 just went in the developer's pocket. So it was above and beyond their 7 to 9% reasonable profit. One of the things with proffers that we're not planning well with infrastructure. I mean, we know how Otterdale and Woolridge Road, we've seen how it's been growing the last 5 years. These roads should have been done 4 years ago. But in the way that the proffers are set up, the money is coming too late to influence the infrastructure there. With the case that, one of the cases that was just done, they'll start to work on that on the Smith case, on the Smith property case. And there was some money proffered for road construction. There was also, the developer proffered a little bit to expand the parking lot at Woolridge Elementary. But they're gonna be starting construction, and the school's not gonna see the parking lot for 4 years. So that's part of the problem with proffers. We've got to understand that we have to be able to get the money, use the money for what it's intended to in the beginning, so that infrastructure keeps up with building and construction and growth in our part of the county. The western end of the county is just going crazy right now. We have to, when we're funding and using these as funding sources, we absorb that $3.5 million the Board of Supervisors for the school system provided money. We've got to ensure that, as we said, that the right tax rate is there so that we can fund all of our projects, and that's law enforcement, the infrastructure, schools, and everything. We've got to ensure that we have the right amount of money there. So I think that's the best way we'll do it, is by taking the proffers, getting them up front, and allowing us to work on infrastructure before it's actually needed. Thank you.
Okay. So question 2, be Siobhan Mason, Rob Thompson, and then Kevin Carroll.
Okay, this is question 2. It's on property rights. The Planning Commission recently recommended a new comprehensive plan that gives greater flexibility to allow increased density as well as commercial, assisted living, etc., cluster homes, and condos to be built in or adjacent to existing subdivisions. The current zoning ordinance general provisions state that the county should, in quotes, protect against overcrowding of land, undue density of population in relation to community facilities, danger and congestion in travel and transportation, and loss of life, health, or property from fire, flood, panic, or other dangers or conditions. As a Matoaca supervisor, based on the above standards, what ideas do you have to protect the rights of existing homeowners against overcrowding and congestion in their neighborhoods? Kevin? Oh, excuse me.
That's okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I think the first thing would be one, to take in consideration the needs of the citizens. The best example was a recent case that we had in this particular area when the citizens came out, they voiced their concerns about the different zoning ordinances, they voiced their concerns about having certain dwellings placed in their homes and near their residences. And they not only voiced their concerns, but they backed their concerns with valid statistics. They didn't come with a motion, and then different types of information. And unfortunately, that was ignored. And I think that one thing that really needs to be considered, when you look at the comprehensive plan is the blueprint in which the Board of Supervisors are to make their decision. The comprehensive plan is supposed to, on paper, provide for the best way for the district, which is Matoaca. We have the hugest district, how we're supposed to thrive. If you look at how the comprehensive plan is set up, it shows that the role that the citizens should have, we should have a voice. Lately, there's been a concern that we do not have a voice, that more attention and more respect and more influence have been coming from the builders, from the developers. And so I always say go back to the basics, and that's just the lawyer in me. What does the blueprint stand for? The Code of Virginia guides us there. And so when trying to figure out what is best for the community, one, look at what our citizens are saying. Two, take into consideration the reservoir, the flooding. We already have heavy transportation and things that are already going on that are problems now. Let's try to find a solution, but not add more problems or issues just to satisfy developers.
So the comprehensive plan is, it's supposed to be a framework or a guideline, right? It's not an embedded law that has to be followed to the letter of the law. We've got to use it smartly. When we're looking at new developments that are coming in, I mean, the important thing is engagement. Engage with the community, and then taking the engagement and incorporating it back into the plan. Sometimes it seems like we have community engagement, but there's no incorporation of the community's planning or their thoughts into the overall plan when it gets brought up before the plan Board of Supervisors. Land use, everybody owns a piece of property, or that owns a piece of property wants to build a house on it or wants to do what they want to do on it. So we have to balance that with people that have owned property. I mean, there's families in Matoaca that have owned for 150 years out there. And some of them now want to sell and maybe turn it into housing developments. Just because they can, we have to make sure that it fits in with the overall plan of what's going on around in that area, just like we have to do on this end of the county where the growth is going crazy. Some of the density problems that we're having, there's been a large focus in the past couple of years. I think you've all seen how the Chesterfield has talked about the over 55 population. The population, less children, is growing in Chesterfield County. More families without children are now living in Chesterfield County. So there's been a big push for the over 55 communities. Denser type properties packed into smaller areas so they can get, the developers can get more dollars per square foot. So, as I said, we need to pay attention to how we're doing it. We have to engage the community. You have to incorporate the community's feedback into each and every case, and each case is different. And if we do that, I think that we'll make more people, every time you do a case, not everybody's happy, but I think by incorporating input, everybody you'll have more people that'll be happier at the end with the input. Thanks. Kevin.
I'm just kidding. So, good question. Some of you who are here know that I spoke at the public meeting, both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors against the Smith Tract property that they were trying to do out here, which they rubber stamped anyway. The comprehensive plan is a guideline, and it's required to have a comprehensive plan by state law, which is why it's really important that you elect the right person to sit on the Board of Supervisors, because that person's going to have to look at the comprehensive plan, look at what the law says, I like the law, and make a decision. The reason we had such a problem out here is because we had so many people who were upset about what that particular development was going to do, who voiced their opinion and got ignored. A 250-person petition that was signed and delivered to the Board of Supervisors, delivered to the Planning Commission, and they just rubber stamped it and sent it through. I spoke against it for a couple of reasons, because I did not like the fact that the current people in power did not meet with the people. You gotta meet with the people who live in the neighborhoods. That's how you're gonna be able to make the best decision. And yeah, sometimes you may not come to an agreement on that decision, but you don't know if you don't meet with them, if you don't talk to them. That's what you gotta do, and it might be uncomfortable. But if you wanna sit in the hot seat, you wanna say you're gonna be the leader, then you gotta go out and meet the people and talk to them about these issues. And it's not just the Smith Tract out here, there's developments all across the county that we have issues with. If you look, there's a new sign ordinance coming, there's a new, we're looking at pushing solar panels through, and as a Board of Supervisors member, you have to dig into the details about these issues, look deep down. And for me, when I'm looking at something, is it gonna be good for the community? And when I talk about community, you know, your neighborhood, your community, that's your community. To make the argument that it's for the greater good for the whole rest of Chesterfield County, that doesn't sit well with me for the people whose house is right next to. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is question number 3, and
Just so we keep the order straight, it'll be Rob Thompson, Kevin Carroll, and Shawan Mason.
okay. This is regarding meals tax. Several years ago, a meals tax proposal was defeated in a county referendum. If elected Matoaca supervisor, would you vote for a meals tax? If so, how would you recommend the funds be used? If not, why not?
Well, being on the school board and looking over at Henrico and their $27 million a year that they get for their new construction, they can actually build a brand new elementary school every year and pay cash for it. I think that the meals tax, the last time it was put out, was not well thought out, it wasn't planned, and it wasn't pushed appropriately. It was thrown out there, we wanted $305 million to build schools, and we'd like to pay for it with this, so it was given a choice. I don't mind the choice part, but I think that the advertising, we should have done a little better advertising, so we explained what the meals tax was, how it affected everybody, and what that money would be used for. I do support a meals tax, because I think that 20 million, the last study that was done for the county was they estimate approximately $20 million a year would come in on a meals tax that would go to schools. It would go to construction and long-term maintenance. That would free up about $20 million in the overall school budget, which then could be redirected towards curriculum. It could be redirected towards salaries. There's other things that can be done with the money that is funding. Right now, about 10% of our budget is currently, in the school's budget, is currently going to pay debt on construction costs. So that's 10% of the money that's set aside for schools and to teach our kids is going to pay for construction. So I think that it's my understanding that there are quite a few people that are supporting the meals tax, and that after the next election, it will have a chance to come back up for a vote. I think that if we do a better job promoting it, showing what the benefits of how the kids will benefit, then I think that next time it'll have a better chance at passing. Thank you.
So, Richmond has a meals tax, and Henrico has a meals tax, Colonial Heights has a meals tax, Chesterfield doesn't. I'm a shop Chesterfield kind of guy, always have been. I don't go to Henrico to eat, I'm gonna go to Richmond to eat if I can avoid it, although occasionally I can't. I'm not in favor of a meals tax. Now, I've heard two arguments on it, and he's right. The rollout on it last time was terrible. And I don't think the citizens had enough input. The truth of the matter is, if you're gonna do a meals tax, you're the one who have to decide. You, the people, you're the one who go and vote on it. So if the people vote to have a meals tax, we'll have a meals tax. They voted against it last time. The meals tax was supposed to be used for schools and public safety. There's an argument that if you do a meals tax, which brings revenue in from people, there's about 115,000 people that leave Chesterfield County every day to go work somewhere else, and about 75,000 that come in here. But the majority of people that are gonna pay for the meals tax are people who live here. There will be some that will come into the county and they will eat here, but the majority of the people gonna pay for the meals tax are the ones who are here. So if the people lobby me strongly and say, we want meals tax, we have to have it, I have no problem with putting out for a vote. Because the people should have the right to vote as to whether they should have a meals tax or not. So I have no problem with giving it out to the people to vote. For me personally, I think we set the tax rate for what it should be. If we have needs that we have to fund, you set the tax rate. That's why you have a tax rate. And if you can do it through growth and make sure you get the money for the schools and everything you need to do, great. If we can bring new business in here to raise more revenue to do this, great. But I think the people should have the right to vote on whether they want a meals tax or not. Thank you.
In reference to a meals tax, fiscal responsibility is something that is key. And it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. Whenever you're dealing with the pocketbook, the money, I think it's important to have all of the information. I think it's important to see if the meal tax is granted, what are the pros and cons in reference to that, what happens if we don't have a meals tax. I think that Mr. Carroll is correct, that is something that definitely the citizens, they have to voice their opinion. When you're in the role of a public office, you're not there for yourself, you're the servant of the people. And so having the input from the people, which would be the Matoaca constituents, what do you feel about the meals tax, whether or not it's going to benefit the area or not? And one thing about our area, Matoaca District is the largest district in Chesterfield County, and it is very diverse from your southern aspect to your western aspect. So we may not agree within it ourselves, but having the information and having the input of the citizens is key in determining what the meals tax. And then once we have that information, I would definitely have a position on that. Thank you.
All right. So, next question, we'll start Kevin Carroll, then Shawana Mason, and Rob Thompson. Start.
The next question is on revitalization. Infrastructure in Ettrick and the Jeff Davis corridor have deteriorated for years. Previous developer incentives have not been successful. As Matoaca District Supervisor, how would you promote revitalization?
That's a great question. So if you go down and look at Jeff Davis Highway right now, you'll see that they're bringing some good things down there. They're bringing a new movie theater down there. They're building a new apartment complex down there. I used to work all up and down Jeff Davis. So one of the things you have to do is you have to attract businesses who want to come there. You have to talk to business leaders. You know, we have a lot of people wanting to spend a lot of money out here. We just had a $300 million project approved for the Summit in Magnolia. Did anybody bother talking to them to see if they'd be interested in doing a project in Ettrick? So what we need to do is talk with the people who are looking for investments. We have enterprise zones that we've put in place in centers. So there's one that's down actually in Jeff Davis and one down in Ettrick. And we need to market those to them and say, look, we want to incentivize you to come here and get the communities involved and talk to the people, say, what would be good for you? What do you want in your community? And then push for those things to come there. You can't sit back and wait for someone to come to you. You gotta go out and go and find them. You gotta go out and find these businesses, find the people who want to do these investments and bring them in and get them to come in and invest in Chesterfield County. Now that's what our EDA is supposed to be doing, and certainly they've done some in that area, but I think as a leader, you have to take some responsibility role in that, and I think you have to have an active role. And so I would be actively seeking, working with the community to find investors that want to come into Chesterfield, into these areas, and revitalize, and work with the planning department and the people to find out what's the perfect project to put there. Because just because you want to revitalize, you have to do it right. You have to make sure what you're putting in fits right. Thank you.
This topic is, reaches me deeply, and I will say why. Because I have spent a lot of time in Ettrick. There is a huge disparity in how the resources are spent within the Matoaca District. The Southern District, which encompasses Ettrick, Chesterfield Avenue, Virginia State University. Some people are shocked to find out we have a train station that is in Ettrick. The train station, I had an internship at UVA back in 1997, when I had an internship in Congress. And the train station looks even worse. It has declined, deteriorated. When my last trip was December, I want to say 2019, December 2018. And so we hear a lot of talk about what we're going to do in reference to Ettrick. And that's give people a reason to want to come to Ettrick. That's give people a reason to want to use the train station. But when you go to Ettrick, it is deteriorating. Revitalization means to revitalize, to bring back to life. The comprehensive plan, it has a distinctive section where it mentions Ettrick, but very little has been done. Very little has been completed. It is mind-boggling to me how on the southern, how on the western aspect of Matoaca, there is such an influx of revenue. We can do a lot of stuff. But on the southern part of Matoaca, Ettrick Elementary right now is designated to start their new building in 2120. 2120, the same building that I went to back into the 80s. And let's not even begin to start about the teachers and the resources and the lack of things that they have there. So revitalization needs to be fair. It needs to be across the board. And so that is something that has been on paper, and persons have voiced it, but it's very concerning when you voice an issue and you voice a concern and it falls on deaf ears. Thank you.
Originally, when we did the $305 million bond referendum, revitalization, the plan was you revitalize neighborhoods by building new schools. And we discussed with the current board of supervisors that just because you build a new school doesn't revitalize a neighborhood. It's a step, it's a process, it's one piece of it. If we look down at Ettrick, the new school will open up in September of 2021. We will move those kids into Matoaca while we tear it down and do it. Virginia State has done a very good job in their expansion. I talk with President Abdullah probably every couple of weeks because we have a great partnership between Virginia State and Ettrick Elementary, and I try to see what Virginia State is doing down there. But Virginia State can't do it all. We've got to lure more businesses down there so that we can revitalize Chesterfield Avenue and Dupie on the other side of it. Because right now you've got houses that need to be, some of those houses that are boarded up that need to be torn down. You need to build some of the buildings that will attract businesses. So we do have to make it attractive for a developer so that they will come down there and put the money in. They did, the Board of Supervisors did put aside some of the money for infrastructure down there when they increased the stormwater pipes and the sewage down there. So that's just a small beginning. But there's a lot of work to be done in Ettrick, in that community, and the Jeff Davis corridor. But it starts with going out and bringing business into Chesterfield. We have a huge shortfall of businesses. And I'm not talking about large, huge businesses. Give me 5 small businesses that employ 5 to 7 people, and we've got 25 to 32 employees right there. Those are the kind of businesses that stay around forever and contribute to our economy. And that's what we need to do in Ettrick. Let's make it a lot more attractive. Thank you.
Okay, let me just mention, a few people are standing. We do have a couple of empty seats over here, 4 actually. So if you feel like you want to have a seat, make your way over to this side. Okay, we're up on question 5, right?
Question 5.
Okay, the order will be Shawan Mason, then Rob Thompson, and Kevin Carroll.
This question 5 is on public transportation. What is your view on public transportation needs in the county?
Public transportation, that's interesting. One, because the county is so diverse. You have the western part and you have the southern part. And it's the largest county that is the largest part of Chesterfield County. One, what's the view of the citizens? One thing that I can say, if you travel on Hall Street Road or certain parts of Midlothian at a certain time, you're gonna feel as if you're in DC. It's the reason why we are Chesterfield County. Chesterfield has a you have your rural aspects and then your urban aspects. But The caveat to that is a lack of jobs. And so if there are persons that do not have transportation to get to work, how are they going to get there? A big issue that I face as a defense attorney is that you have a lot of persons who are driving on suspended licenses, and then you have their fines. Thankfully, we have Scott Miles, who's in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, that's made a huge difference in that respect, because if you don't have a job, you're not going to be able to pay your fines, you're not going to be able to go to work. And so transportation, I think that's a tricky topic, but it's definitely one, just like all of the topics that I just can't keep voicing enough. We need to hear from the people, the concerns of the people, what's best for certain areas. Transportation, public transportation may be better in one area of Matoaca and not benefit the other. And so that is definitely something we need to have the research, we need to have the feedback of the citizens, and then move in that direction.
So I agree. Public transportation is going to be specific to the area that is looking at it. Public transportation out in the far western part, in the Magnolia Green corridor and out there, is really not going to work as well as maybe public transportation on the Jeff Davis corridor, or a type of transportation down in the Ettrick corridor. We're lucky that Ettrick is small enough and has some of the still of the local businesses there that people are able to get around Ettrick. I would say the most important part we have right now for public transportation is trying to ensure that that new train station stays here and stays in Ettrick, so that the students can make use of it and the rest of the county can make use of it, and try to keep it from going to Colonial Heights and moving up the road and trying. It's been a concerted effort for the past year and a half with Virginia State, Board of Supervisors, and the community. The community has stood up very well arguing for that train station. So the specifics are, we've got to look at where it is, how does it fit into that area of the county, and then talk with the people and figure out what we can do best for those citizens.
So Chesterfield County is the fourth most populous county in Virginia, fifth most populous jurisdiction. And right, we have a very diverse community. Ettrick is different than the western part of Hull Street. Part of the problem is, when you talk about public transportation, is we don't fund it. So it's something you need to fund if it's needed, right? So is it needed? Well, if you look at the western part of Hull Street, you look at the congestion out there, would public transportation cut part of that down? Part of the 288, the new plan that the county just rolled out talks about a rideshare center being put out on Hull Street next to the Fulgham Center, which would allow people to park their cars there and catch public transportation to take them all the way through the 360 corridor and take them down to Richmond if they're working in Richmond. Remember, 115,000 people leaving Chesterfield County every day to go work somewhere else, 75,000 coming in. So it's easy to understand that there's probably a need for public transportation. Different parts of the county, there'll be different issues. Infrastructure. Do we really think that our roads are ready for bus stops everywhere? Because we haven't built them. We haven't built the roads for bus stops. So we need to widen some of the roads and put lanes in for the buses, because if not, they're going to back up everything and make it even more congested than it is. So it's something that needs to be looked at hard. People need to have the input on it as well. Different parts of the county it's going to work, and different parts it's not. Midlothian Turnpike, yes. Probably parts of Hull Street, yes. Ettrick, yeah. Is the train station important to keep? Yeah, it is, absolutely. But what bothered me about the whole train station deal is that the only person that went to Washington, D.C. to talk about a leader of representatives was a lady from Ettrick. Why didn't the Board of Supervisors go up there and talk to him? I get elected, that's exactly what I would do.
Okay, question 6 will be Bob Thompson first, and Kevin Carroll, and Shalon Mason.
Okay, question 6 is regarding the sign ordinance. The Planning Commission will consider a major change to Chesterfield's sign ordinance on May 21st, 2019. If passed, this will be a reversal of the sign ordinance revised in 2013, with citizen input to limit electronic signs and eventually eliminate large billboards. The Planning Commission and planning staff worked for 8 months with 2 large sign company lobbyists to develop a sign ordinance that would continue large billboards, expand their locations, and allow proliferation of small business electronic signs. During that time, there was no attempt to solicit community input. If elected, would you insist on transparency and citizen inclusion on major ordinance changes? What parts of the proposed sign ordinance would you support?
The sign ordinance, first of all, I'll start with the transparency portion. I think that with every minor major decision that you're making that are affecting the people and the citizens of the Matoaca District, you've got to get out. You have to get out and have public hearings. You've got to have community town halls, and you've got to be able, as I said before, you have to take the feedback and incorporate it. I think that, I've done that in the past 4 years. One instance, right in Woolridge, we looked at redistricting. We started with 258 kids had to move to Clover Hill. We were able to back it down by taking input from the citizens that lived in Wood Lake, and we got to a number, it was about 137 people, and it still accomplished the goals that we needed to accomplish. So that's taking citizens' input. I think that's what has to be done with this sign ordinance. The sign ordinance just kind of perked along. It kind of reminds me of, an old saying my grandfather used to tell me was, don't let the fox in the hen house. Because you've got the people that stand to benefit directly that are sitting in with the guys that are making the decision to come up with the sign ordinance instead of the people that it's going to affect across our county, our citizens. So I think once the drafts came out, then they should have been sitting out, talking with the public. Numerous public hearings so that you can once you've made changes, go back out with the changes so that the public sees the changes that you're making as you continue through the process. It's not go out, take input, go back, make your changes, and vote on it the next week. It's a repetitive process. Thank you. Yeah.
So, transparency in this particular issue was terrible. And letting a company that will greatly benefit financially from a redesigned sign ordinance participate in that process was flawed thinking. So, what did we do? Well, we held I call it a semi-private meeting up at a Clover Hill Library for the public, which was filled probably mostly with people who had heard about it, who were against the sign ordinance, and then a couple of lobbyists who were there for the sign ordinance. I think that the sign ordinance is outdated, so it does need to be looked at. However, it needs to be looked at with the community, because we're the ones who have to drive by the signs every day and decide, do you want to see a billboard? Do you want to see a flashing billboard? Do you want to have it changed the way it is, and so that you pretty much can do whatever you want? There are sections of that ordinance that are drafted that limit sign usage in certain areas of the county, but not in others. They take away from the provision for the sign to actually be approved by the planning commission and by the board of supervisors and make it a carte blanche so you can change it. Some signs we actually have to make it easier for businesses to be able to put up and work with. Some signs we don't do that. I hate our sign ordinance. It should have been redone a long time ago, but it needs to be redone with the input of the people. How do you do that? Well, do you just send a mailer out? No, you gotta go out and talk with people. You can't sit in the office and not do it. You gotta go to churches, you gotta go to schools, you gotta go wherever you gotta go to see them, even if you stay in the grocery store on the weekend. But you can't do it covertly, in my opinion.
In reference to the sign ordinances, transparency has not just been an issue with the sign ordinances. That's been something that's been somewhat of an ongoing theme for the past couple of years. Specifically, whenever the board members have decisions to make, it's important to make sure that the citizens are available. I think that it is not considered. You have a lot of single parents, and then you have a lot of parents that have children who are involved in sports. You have people who work. And so at times that there's a meeting at 1 o'clock, at times that there's a meeting at 5:30, 6 o'clock, a lot of people are not able to go to voice their concerns or to voice their opinions in reference to what's going on. I think having transparency, we need to think of another method. In this day and age, you have social media, you have email, there's just various ways to have the information put out there. And so when you're talking about transparency in reference to the sign ordinance, if it took them, as what they're saying, roughly 8.5 months to work together with that, then we as the citizens should have just as much time to have our feedback so that we can do our own research. You have to be careful when you give someone or one particular organization too much flexibility. Thinking about sign ordinances, and I go to the schools quite often as a guardian ad litem, how awful would it be to have a Stella Rosa billboard just 2 miles away from an elementary or any other elementary school or any high school? And so we got very careful about the flexibility that we give and then the motives behind these ordinances. And so once again, the feedback from the people, but keep in mind, everybody can't make the 1 o'clock meetings or 6 or 5:30. Doesn't mean because we're not there that we're not interested. We have life going on. And so there need to be other mechanisms to make sure that we all have the information and that we have it in a timely fashion.
Okay,
Transparency.
Kevin, Carroll will go first, then Shawan Mason, and then Rob Hobson.
Okay, transparency and accountability. Lack of transparency has been in the news frequently recently. Some believe that supervisors and commissioners should maintain an arm's length relationship with developers who submit applications for rezoning, and citizens should be included earlier in the process. What changes, if any, would you make in the rezoning process?
So, I absolutely believe in transparency. I think that we have to be more forthcoming, and I give you an example. I was talking with a couple the other day down off Ebbs Falls Road, and they get a notification that the county's now looking to put solar farms in, but no one told them. And they end up getting a letter sent to their house that's backdated about the fact that the county's looking to allow they're changing the solar zoning ordinance. They've already approved it in the planning commission. Now it's gonna go to the board. So we have to find better ways. We have social media. For example, raise your hand if you have a Facebook account in a neighborhood that you have access to, right? So maybe we have Facebook, maybe we have websites. We have a bunch of electronic means for the county to send out information to the community to get their input on things at a quicker rate. Usually we don't get a zoning notification until someone's actually submitted the zoning case, and then they put signs up saying zoning pending, and then maybe they send something to you. And then you find out, well, I gotta go down and see what's going on. So no, I think that we need, if something is so star-spangled fantastic, then we should be really proud about pushing it out. And we should wanna get the citizens' input. So I would make changes for whoever I found, and my process for picking a planning commissioner is gonna be different than most. I'm not gonna pick a good old boy buddy of mine and say, I want you to be planning commissioner. I'm actually gonna advertise for the position and have qualified people who have experience in being a planning commissioner actually come in and vie for the job instead of going, hey, I like you, you do it. And that's pretty much how planning commissioners are picked right now. So my process would be different. Thank you.
Transparency is key. Getting the information, getting the feedback, that is always essential. That is something that I just cannot repeat enough, because unfortunately the sentiment is that we are voicing many concerns and are not being heard. When you have your home, you decide, what do you have in your living room, what do you have in your kitchen, what do you have in your bedroom. No one should be forced to have certain things in your subdivision or even in your home, and then later on find out, okay, there was a meeting about it and I wasn't invited. In this day and age, all the information that we need should be made accessible. We should look at the role that the developers play in the decision making. We are the citizens. We live here. We have genuine invested interest. Developers, unfortunately, money making, that's their main concern. But we live here. And when you select where you want to live, a lot of times you select it based on the area, the schools, what's around it, the crime, that type of thing. So the input from the citizens should always be key and should always be tantamount in reference to how the zoning ordinances are placed. I just cannot be so much more adamant about the fact that it's so concerning that the influence of developers are having much more of an effect or impact than the influence of the citizens, and that is concerning and that is not right.
Transparency is key. Transparency starts with open dialogue. Making yourself accessible to the public. I know that I typically respond to emails in the same day that I receive one. Either I'll get back to you, or let me do more research, or let me go and find the answer, or I'll have someone on the school staff respond quicker if it's in their area. So being responsive and transparency and working with people is huge. But, you know, the other part is that accountability piece that you mentioned, Jack. I'm a huge accountability person. And, you know, maybe it came from being 20 years in the military and nodding my head and saluting and going off and doing what I was told. But once you work with staff or the public or developers or whoever we're working with, I believe in accountability. If you tell me you're gonna do something, I write it down and I typically follow up to make sure you did it. And if you didn't, then we're gonna have a discussion. And that's the same way that I am with staff that I work with and those that are out in the public. It's a two-way street, but accountability is huge with me. And I will hold those out, the developers, the business owners, I will hold them accountable to do what they're supposed to do. And I'll hold our staff accountable to do what they're supposed to do so that the word is put out and that what we tell people is what we're actually doing, because that's the important part. Thank you.
All right, moving along. Question 8. Got the order as Shawan Mason, Rob Thompson, and then Kevin Carroll.
Okay, question 8 is regarding the comprehensive plan. During a recent rezoning public hearing, a supervisor stated that the comprehensive plan is simply a general plan and guide, and that it can be deviated from since plans are not always followed. However, the Virginia Certified Planning Commission curriculum defines the plan as the policy statement for local planning. How do you view the purpose of the comprehensive plan?
The comprehensive plan serves as our blueprint. It is our roadmap of how we are to govern, how we're to go forward, how Matoaca should thrive. The comprehensive plan, the way it reads, is supposed to be updated every 5 years. The last one that we've had was 2012. So, if you do your math, 2012, 5 years, that should have been 2017. Here it is, 2019. If that is our blue book, if that is our roadmap, why are we lingering? How can we move forward if we do not know the way that the comprehensive plan wants us to go? That allows for too much flexibility. You have to, as Mr. Thompson said, we do have to have accountability. This is our blueprint. This is what we follow. The problem is it hasn't been followed. Some areas and not others. And so too much flexibility allows those persons who are in positions to manipulate. That has to be stopped. It is ridiculous to me that this comprehensive plan, which is our blueprint, right now, we don't have one. The last one was 2012. I've been told that there is one and soon it's going to come up. It's amazing to me that this is election year and their comprehensive plan is about to come. So then you have to look at the motives, the persons that are rendering the comprehensive plan, and then what's about to happen in reference to that. And so the comprehensive plan is something that we should follow and we should adhere to the requirements, which is every 5 years, and in developing that, take into consideration of the constituents, which are the residents of Matoaca.
The comprehensive plan is a strategic framework. I don't think that it's followed word for word, line by line. I believe that it provides us a framework so that we can work off it and make smart decisions as we go through zoning processes throughout the county. As far as the comprehensive plan being reworked, she's right, it should have been done 2 years ago. The problem is that they send it out to work on it. They do one chapter at a time, they'll work on it for 8 or 9 months, and then they work to the next section. So they're taking a document that should be able to be accomplished in a year and they're dragging it out to 2 or 3 years. And the new comprehensive plan that's getting ready to come out still has the 2012 section on schools. There's no update. We provided an update, and because some members of the Board of Supervisors didn't agree with the size of elementary schools being 750 or 900, which is what our prototype specifies and we're building throughout the county, because they didn't agree with that, they rejected the school's input. So the brand new comprehensive plan that'll come out next year will have the 2012 comprehensive plan for schools with no update. It's just, that's not taking input. That's not doing what we're supposed to do. Taking input from the people, taking input from the boards that are elected to do things, taking input from our constituents, incorporate it in a better timeline so that it makes the timelines that we need. 5 years is 5 years, 5 years is not 7 years.
So I was at that meeting when that statement was made about how the comprehensive plan is just a guideline and you don't have to go by it, disagree with it. Part of what's supposed to happen with the comprehensive plan is that the citizens are supposed to have input. And then, based on the input of the people from the community, that's how you should be looking to draft your plan. Working also with developers as well, because look, let's face it, nothing gets built, because it's not the government's role to build things other than schools and infrastructure. When you talk about private industry, we have to get people to come here and want to invest in our community. So you have to work with them as well. They're not always the devil, but the devil's in the details. And he's right, the comprehensive plan that's going to come out doesn't include the school's information. And I find that alarming, that the board of supervisors and the school board couldn't work together in a timely fashion to actually get that information that is necessary to be put in there about the schools in the comprehensive plan. Wasn't done. So I don't know where the communication problem was, but it should have been in there. Because I tried to read it the other night and I got the same thing that he said. Yeah, it's not in there. So now I'm a rule of law guy, right? 32 years I follow the rules of law. Help write law. And so if you have law, you have to follow what the plan is. There will be some exceptions, but if you're going to do an exception, which we do all the time, by the way, with conditional use permits, that's where you have to go out to the public and get their input. You have to be somewhat flexible, be able to go out to the public and say, I know this is what the comprehensive plan says, however, we really think this would be good for the community. What do you think? And if the community signs on to it, well, then you can do it. If they were against it like they were out here, you shouldn't do it.
Okay, Jack, I'm gonna make a suggestion. We've been at it for 45 minutes or so. Candidates have been able to stand up and down, but maybe everybody here might want to just take a minute and stretch, stand, take a 1 minute break.
Go to Zumba.
I can't do that.
1 minute. Don't stop.
That's unfair.
Also, John keeps
Did you say you had 2 tries?
Judge, one of them is
I'm sorry, ma'am. I know it's a dumb question.
I stretch
Okay, folks. We need to get back onto our schedule here. Your minute is up. Please come on back in. We're going to get the form going again. Okay, final call. We're going to move on to question 9. And the order will be Rob Thompson, and then Kevin Carroll, and Shawan Mason. So, Jack?
Okay, question 9. Question 9 is about industrial development. The Chesterfield Economic Development Authority withdrew the Matoaca megasite industrial proposal last year due to the strong citizen objections relating to the lack of transparency and proximity to residential development. How do you propose to involve the public in future county industrial development initiatives?
Well, I think we've hit on 3 different questions that talk about transparency, and that was a huge one. Transparency, and what I said was incorporating input. There was no input incorporated until we got to the very end, when there was almost an uprising with the county citizens. And once the citizens united and showed a united front, then they took their remarks and considerations into account and made the right decision. I think that these mega sites, these industrial sites that are set aside, they work well in some places, but there's a lot of places that have had mega sites sitting for years and years and years. I know when I drive south down 95, there's one down there on the right-hand side of the road. You see the billboard. It's been there for quite a while. It all stems back into taking public input. And if you take public input, you have to incorporate public input. Our economic development, the EDA, they've got to work a little bit more out in the open also. And I understand negotiating. When you're negotiating with somebody, you can't let it out of the bag. One, prices go up, competition jumps up. I understand that part of it. But they have got to do a better job with incorporating the public and where it's going to be affected. So it comes back to transparency and working with everybody. And that's what they didn't do a good job of. The other thing I'm still trying to understand is why it was the Matoaca mega site and it's located in Bermuda. So I'm still confused on that one. But thanks, Kevin.
So I had the pleasure of going to 3 of those meetings that were held on the Matoaca mega site. Imagine if we had actually solicited input before we did that, and the citizens actually came forward and said, nope, we don't want that. We would have saved a lot of money. A lot of taxpayers' dollars would have been saved if we had had a conversation first. Imagine if we actually went out to the community when we had properties that were up for development, that someone had posted an interest in developing and said, got any ideas? What do you think we'd like to put in here? The fact that we were even considering putting an industrial site on a 1,700 acre parcel within 5 miles of 41,000 people was not a good idea, not in my opinion. The fact that the way we rolled it out was even worse. The EDA was trying to do, I think, what they thought was right, but remember who the EDA works for. Remember who appoints them. Oh yeah, the Board of Supervisors does, for 4-year terms. So they work for the board. So if they're doing that, they're doing the bidding of the board. You have to think about that. I think that we need to communicate better with the community. I think, the fact that We have great websites for the county, but they need to be updated so people have an idea, a better way to look at stuff. I don't like putting industrial sites that close. When you look at the proposals that they showed of an automobile plant, and they look at the one down in Alabama as an example, yeah, but there's only like 9,000 people in a 5-mile radius to that plant. There was no one close. It wasn't going to affect them. So again, common sense. Let's talk to the people, look at what it is, and if it doesn't fit, we still have a lot of other land in Chesterfield County where we might be able to do something like that, like we're doing down in Enon off of 295. Just my thoughts.
Just to echo what Mr. Thompson said, because I wondered the same thing. It's called the Matoaca Mega Site, but it's located in the Bermuda District. So immediately I say to myself, who's looking out for Matoaca? We need to be very careful what we have our name on, particularly something like the Matoaca Mega Site. One thing that I think that the Matoaca Mega Site showed us was the power of the voice of the citizens. But ironically, we had the same citizens, the same power of voice with the Wilbur Smith case, and we had a different result. And so once again, we have to ensure that our voices are heard and that things are not dictated just because the developers want certain things to happen. And I think we really have to safeguard, and as Mr. Carroll indicated, hold EDA accountable. The Board of Supervisors have such authority and need to exercise it. And what is the intent? Are we here to serve the people or serve other interests? And as public servants, we're here to serve the people. And would balance it, but mostly to serve the people.
Okay. Question, oh, that's everyone, right?
Yep.
Dennis?
Yep.
Kevin Carroll goes first, and then Siobhan Mason, and Rob Thompson.
Okay, the next question has to do with the landfill. Over 700 residents living near the Shoesmith landfill have signed a petition protesting unwanted odors and potentially medically toxic coal ash, fly ash, being blown over and onto their private property. How would you address their air quality concerns?
Well, if you live in that part of the county, which I don't live far from it, you if you drive down the road, you actually smell it, and it's not good. So what we need to look at is find experts to come in and give the county advice on what's the best way for us to mitigate this issue. I can't believe that this is the first time that this has happened in the United States, that a landfill is actually emitting an odor. So there's probably experts out there that we can bring in that would advise us the right things that we can do to mitigate the problem. I'm going to tell you that I know a lot about a lot of things, and all my friends will tell you that, but I don't know everything. But one thing I do know is to find someone else that knows something about the issue I'm trying to fix. That's what a smart person does. Admit I don't know it, but I'll find someone who does. And when you find that person, then you get their advice, and then you can make things work. You can get things fixed. So you don't have to be the smartest person, and you got to admit that. So what I would do is I would seek out the best advice possible, the best contractors, companies, and bring them in and say, okay, what can we do to fix this? And give us a price tag, because everything comes with a price tag. And then we got to go back to the people and say, okay, we can do it, but this is what it's going to cost. And be upfront, transparent about it. Thank you.
It's amazing that Mr. Thompson keeps up the order. But I think it's just obvious to citizens that we don't want the landfill. We don't want them. I know a main concern, and speaking with some constituents that live out in the Highlands, they have nice houses, but they can't enjoy their decks because the smell is horrific. Very nice area, but the smell is horrific. What the landfills would do to the pollution. So there are a lot of concerns, but the fact that the citizens are adamant that we do not want them, that needs to be something that the Board of Supervisors take heed to. I know that the Board of Supervisors, they do have the ability to amend the language to take a tougher stance on them, and that is something that they need to consider. But definitely, and I can't emphasize it enough, listen to the citizens. The Board of Supervisors are servants of the citizens, and that is something that's the way they should take their direction. And then as Mr. Carroll so adequately stated, if there's an area that we need more information on, then find the experts and listen to the experts, but convey that information to the citizens. And even then, you still have to take into consideration where the citizens stand on that issue in reference to the landfills.
See, I look at this two different ways. One, we have to make sure that the landfill lives up to its requirements by state and federal guidelines. If we have to bring people in to do air quality tests, then we bring people in to monitor it. We make sure that they are within the standards and that are doing the best job that they can with respect to our air quality in the surrounding areas. The other side of me says that if you go out into a neighborhood and you buy a house and there's a pig farmer next door, sometimes you're going to smell the pigs because the pig farmer's next door. So I think that you also have to be aware of location, and that's what I'm trying to say is people have bought out there and have lived out there, and if we are not doing enough to monitor and maintain and make sure that they are regulated, then we'll have to do that and influence that. You know, the other side is they're looking at another landfill. I think that landfill has 7 to 8 years left of life, and they're trying to look for an extension. And maybe it's time we cap that landfill and start looking at a better place for the next landfill that won't be right up on development.
All right. Question 11. Siobhan Mason will be first, Rob Thompson, and then Carroll.
Okay, the next question is regarding water quality. As a Board of Supervisor member, what steps would you propose to address the declining water quality in the Swift Creek Reservoir?
Well, the first thing would be to try to figure out what caused the decline. What do we need to do to clean it up? And then second, definitely limit any type of industrialization that's going to impact our reservoir. And then thirdly, solicit the feedback from our citizens and see what areas of concerns that they have and different ways or suggestions that they would have to resolve the issue regarding the water quality. And then there are different organizations that you can also get feedback from in reference to their expertise in order to preserve it. But definitely, and I just can't keep emphasizing getting the citizens' input, but make sure that we're doing our part not to allow too much industrialization to impact it in a negative manner.
So I can remember 5 years ago, 6 years ago, speaking on water quality as it related to Lake Chesnut at the time. And we were going through that big drought. And so we worked hard with the DEQ and the county to change the outlet limits so that we could keep water in the reservoir and make more water for Chesterfield County. I think that we've implemented some things with mandatory BMPs for new construction to stop some of that runoff that was going into the lake and was causing Swift Creek to not be as potable or allow the water to be cleaned as easily. I think we've got to look, besides enforcing those BMPs and the things that need to be done to increase Swift Creek reservoir, we've also got to look at other water outlets. You know, there was a proposal out there that was less than $10 or $12 million that would have been that would have increased the flow of water out of Lake Chesnut, which would make us less reliant on Swift Creek Reservoir's water that just went by the wayside. So we have to look at what's out there, look at what industry is doing, look what the environment is doing, match up the two, and then move on that way.
So, there used to be an Upper Swift Creek plan. The Upper Swift Creek plan was designed to limit the amount of houses and infrastructure you could put on an acre of land. The theory behind it is to control how much growth you put out there, because when you put a house on a piece of property, you take away the vegetation, you create runoff, even if you put grass. And what do people put on their grass? They put lime, they put fertilizer, they put chemicals. So that's why everybody out here was against the Smith tract, because they wanted to put 181 cluster homes in there, and then 10 big homes and an assisted living facility. So when you look at the zoning cases, especially out here, when you talk about water quality, you have to look at and say, that's going to create a bigger issue on runoff into your lakes, into your streams. Evidence starts from the yard, goes down the road, runs into the creek, then runs into the lake. That's how it works. County needs to do a better job of monitoring phosphorus levels. We need to do a better job of enforcing builders and developers. Look, I went out there. The upper end of the lake was brown from the runoff, from all the rain and from all the construction, all the dirt being picked up by the water and washed in, and it's actually filling in the upper section of Swift Creek. So we gotta monitor it better. Maybe we need to go back and look at the Upper Swift Creek plan and say, maybe we actually have to look at restricting some of this back to lot sizes and how big we're gonna allow for these things to happen. And again, not the smartest guy in the world is when it comes to phosphorus levels. I'm not a scientist, but I bet you I can find one, and that would make us take care of this in the future. Thank you.
All right. Moving along to question 12. Rob Thompson will be first, Kevin Carroll, and then Shawan Mason.
The next question is regarding schools. Attracting and keeping excellent teachers, retaining bus drivers, and subpar janitorial services are just a few of the ongoing issues facing the county. Recent events have indicated a rift between the Board of Supervisors and the school board. How will you propose to improve relations between the two boards and address these issues?
Wow, finally a great question. No, just kidding. The school board has had issues. The school board had major issues when we came on board 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. We tackled a lot of them. Some of them we worked well with the Board of Supervisors, some of them we didn't work as well with the Board of Supervisors. We do still have some issues, and our biggest focus is our transportation, and we're working hard to rectify that for next year. I think that, and I've said this for 4 years, 3.5 years, I'm sorry. We have lanes in the road, okay? School boards are not selected anymore by Board of Supervisors. The school board ran for office, they were elected. They are an elected body, they have control of the budget. Yes, the supervisors set the budget and allocate it to us, but once it comes to us, or once it comes to the school board, it is up to them to spend the money. And I think that, you can look back and we've had some Board of Supervisor members who want to be school board members, besides Board of Supervisors. There is a distinction. There are lanes in the road. Stay in your lane, provide the oversight that the Board of Supervisors is supposed to do. Let the school board do what the school board was elected to do. And let them be held accountable by the people while providing the big oversight of the overall budget. But the Board of Supervisors can't dictate what the school board is supposed to do or how they're going to do it, because they are two separate elected bodies, and that's where we've had a rift. I think that the rift it's widened and it's narrowed over the past 3 or 4 years. You've seen it close the gap, close and open and open. And I think right now we're back at the time where the gap is closing a little bit as we're working a little better as we work through some of the issues. We're bringing things to them in a more responsive time frame earlier in the process so that they can get ahead of it, and then we're allowing them to make the decisions they're supposed to make.
Kevin, you're next, okay?
So it's a communication piece, really. Right? What Rob said is true. We used to appoint, the Board of Supervisors used to appoint the school board members. Years ago, they changed that so that the school board members would be elected, so that the citizens would actually have input as to who's going to actually run the schools. And so when you have people who can't communicate with each other, because let's face it, most people run for office are type A personalities. I'm probably a type A. I think I've probably tested that way once or twice. And so everybody has strong personalities, and everybody has strong opinions about what they want to do. But guess what? If you want to be an elected leader and you want to work together, you got to check that personality at the door, and you got to realize that you're there to do a job. So so let the school board do exactly what they're supposed to do. Work your budget, propose your budget, bring it to the board. The board may pick it apart. The board may say, we don't have the money for that, we don't have the money for this. School board members actually get the luxury of saying, we tried, we got it. The bad guys, Board of Supervisors, the ones who don't give them the money. But once they get that budget approved, then the school board has to actually run it properly. They have to spend it properly, be fiscally responsible, and hopefully they are. we have, as a Board of Supervisors, have to oversight that and make sure that when the money is being spent right. It's just part of our responsibility when you're on the Board of Supervisors. Make sure that the money is being spent right. But the communication piece is key. So it's not just a board member or a school board member talking with the community. They need to meet with the community together. And they need to meet with the community to find out what the community needs are, so they can set the priorities in the budget, so the school board people can set their priorities, the Board of Supervisors can set their priorities based on what the need of the community is. It's all about communication. You gotta get along.
One, I think it's unfortunate that there's even a rift between the two sectors, particularly when you look at the common denominator they all have, our school, our children. What is the difficulty in ensuring that our children are successful? That's one thing that whether you're on the school board and the Board of Supervisors, it should be the tangible importance of anyone's agenda. So that's somewhat surprising and shocking to me, and I'm being sarcastic. But in reference to communication, that has just been an issue all the way around. You have to communicate. You have to know what each hand is thinking. We have to converse. We have to come to the table, because now all our elected officials, who do we serve? We serve the public. But if you have selfish interests or you have any ulterior motives and those things are not discussed, then Matoaca is not going to go forward. Matoaca is not going to be the best that it can be. And the children and our residents and ourselves, we are the ones that are going to suffer because of that. So collaboration is key. We have to learn how to collaborate. We're not always going to agree, but there are ways that you can communicate effectively and respectfully and get your point across. But the main thing at the end of the day should be what's best for Matoaca, what's best for the citizens. And it's just mind-boggling that the common denominator both these entities have is our schooling, our education. I'm happy if the argument is how successful you want our children to be. But if it's something else, then that's another discussion.
All right. We have time for a couple more questions, I think, before we go to final summaries. Question 13 will be Kevin Carroll first, and then Shawan Mason, and Rob Thompson third.
Okay, the 13th question has to do with citizen engagement. Would you support implementation at least Would you support implementing at least 2 scheduled open topic town hall meetings per year in each district to address citizens' concerns? And do you have other ideas for increased communication with residents?
Yeah, I think town hall meetings are great. I would take any opportunity to go meet with anybody. You know, of course you get double booked, but you got to make sure that you have someone working your calendar right so you can go and meet with people. Town halls are great. You have to make sure that you let people have a vote. One of the things that bothers me about the Board of Supervisors meetings now is that, number one, if there's a topic that's on the agenda at that meeting and they have a 15-minute comment section at the end, you're not allowed to comment about anything that was discussed on that night. So you get 3 minutes to comment on something, and then if you don't get your word out after 3 minutes, that's it. And you can even defer and give your time to somebody else. I also think they should change it so that if you didn't have enough time in your 3 minutes to say what you wanted to say, at the 15 minutes at the end, you should be able to voice your opinion, not just about something that's not on the agenda, but something that was on the agenda. It's a public meeting. That's what they call it. They say, we're gonna have a public meeting. So I love public meetings. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. You know, when you dial 911, you call for a police officer to come to your house, what we did is we went to your house and we solved your problem. That's what we do. We didn't go, yeah, I'll get back to you next week on that. No, we went and solved your problem. Now as Board of Supervisors, we're not gonna solve all your problems right away. It might take time. But unless you tell me what the problem is, I can't solve it. Having community involvement, having public hearings like that everything's on the table, and so you have to set some ground rules, right? You have to set some ground rules, but as long as everything's on the table to talk about, no. It's called transparency. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yep.
I agree, transparency is key. I'm definitely in favor of having at a minimum 2 scheduled open town hall meetings. I think that it's just imperative that we have the feedback from the citizens. You all are the persons that we'll be serving. I would take it further. I like what the school does. If you have children, you'll get a call, you're on the mass phone line, and the school will give you information as it comes up. Some information will come up at the last minute, but they'll try to notify you. And then sometimes you'll also get an email. I think that that is something that is more helpful as well, in addition to the 2 scheduled meetings, because you're living life. Different things may come up, and if there's something that comes up that may need to be addressed, that gives the citizens the opportunity to inform the leaders. I think right now, and I mentioned it before, people are living lives. You know, you have children. My situation, I have 3 sons. They're honor roll students. They play 2 sports a year each. And so my time is extremely limited. And I'm still a concerned citizen, and I want to remain informed. And so having the ability to utilize email, telephone calls, and then to have the ability to send my concerns that is something that I believe is very imperative, and it's something that's needed. Keeping lines of communication open, but we're not going to be able to serve, and I keep saying that the Matoaca District is so vast, and the issues, what may impact the Southern may be different from the Western. The best way to, meet the needs of everyone, keeping the dialogue and keeping open lines of communication. And I agree with the 2 scheduled meetings, but I definitely think that there needs to be more in between that. Thank you.
2 scheduled meetings, I don't believe, fits the bill, okay? That should be an absolute minimum. Currently, because of the Matoaca District, the other 4 districts in land size fit inside the Matoaca District. Because of that, every time I have a community meeting across the Matoaca District, I do one over at either Edrick Elementary or Shiloh Baptist Church or Matoaca High School for those people in the southern end. And then we do one at CTC Hall, Grange Hall, or Swift Creek Baptist Church. So we always try to do 2. That's what I've done the last 3.5 years for whatever the major issue, whether it be budget or whatever the topic. You've got to get out there and engage. There's 13 schools in the Matoaca District. I'm at every one of those schools every month. Some of them I'm substituting in. I'm at PTA meetings. I'm engaging the public as much as I can. And every time I ask them, is there something I can do better? Or if you have an issue or a problem. And by engaging and getting feedback, you're able to fix things. So I believe that we need as much public engagement as possible, and I just think that 2 is just a bare minimum. That's just a stick in a mark in the sand so that you can build off of. As far as when we're making public comments, I don't think there needs to be a 15-minute total allowable time. I mean, we've sat there during budget hearings and had 29 people who each got their 3 minutes, so we sat there for the 87 minutes while the public got to express their point of view. And that's what we're paid to do. We're paid to get up there and listen to you. So you have your ability to come up there, and we're going to listen to you and work through it. Thanks.
Okay.
Last one, do you think?
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, this will be the last question. Last question is regarding development. The Matoaca District is the most rural one in the county. What is your view for development in this district versus keeping the existing rural nature of this area?
Okay, and Shawan Mason will be first on this one. Rob Thompson, and then Kevin Carroll.
In reference to development, as stated before, Matoaca is so diverse. You're going to have crowding issues in the western part, and then you're going to have underdevelopment in your southern part. There are so many opportunities that are in the southern part of Chesterfield that needs development. And I stated before in my comments, let's give people a reason to go to Ettrick. Let's give people a reason to utilize the train station that is in Ettrick. Let's give Matoaca the opportunity to maintain the train station in Ettrick. And so in looking at development, one, going back to the feedback of the citizens, there are certain parts of Matoaca, if you talk to different persons, they like the rural aspect. They want to maintain that country feel. Then you have parts of the area that they like to kind of have the country feel, but they want to have a store within, a certain range of miles. So that's going to vary. So once again, the feedback of the citizens and where they stand, and then you have to go within your zoning laws and then be in accordance with a comprehensive plan. But number one is the feedback of the citizens, and we really have to keep in mind, and that's one thing that I have done. I traveled the entire Matoaca District, and I was greatly surprised how vast it is. But if you do it, you will be surprised yourself of the different needs, the different differences the areas that have excess traffic, the areas where you leave your house and get to your destination in 5 minutes. And so once again, based on where you are and the particular needs and concerns of the citizens of that particular area, that should be the best way to address the issue of development.
Development, growth is good, but it has to be managed. Growth has to be managed and we have to bring infrastructure along with it. If you look at what Chesterfield County is experiencing right now, look at the socioeconomic diversity moving from east to west, okay? We have currently, if you look at Chesterfield County schools, 61,000 kids that are currently in school. We have 24,000 that are on free and reduced lunch, and the majority of them are on the eastern side of the county. That's more kids than the entire Richmond City schools have at 21,000. Chesterfield's changing. Chesterfield is not Chesterfield of the 1980s and the 1990s, and we have to be responsive to that. The growth is happening in the western. We've got to focus on the revitalization on the eastern side. We've got to manage the growth on the western side and be smart with it. The rural areas of Matoaca are right. I mean, that's why we're having these large subdivisions pop up, because you can't go and find 700 acres in Midlothian. It's harder. You can't find it in Clover Hill or Dale. It's harder. So we've got to work with those that are trying to develop and growth, and we've got to plan ahead so we can get that infrastructure in place.
So I've lived in Matoaca about 30 years of my 32 years here. I lived in Deer Run, and when I moved there, the last street light west was at Old 360. I used to hunt where Hampton Park is. So the county's grown. Yeah, Deer Run is there. Yeah, it's a little cemetery in the middle. I don't know if you're familiar with it now. So the county has grown a lot, and you're right. Different things, whether it's Ettrick or Central Part down in Nash Road where I live, or it's out here in Hull Street, there are different issues relating to development. We have a comprehensive plan that we put in place, which we should use as a guide, right? That's what the comprehensive plan is for. We need to make sure that we keep, if we're gonna look at development, then we make sure that the road structures are gonna be put in place. We do everything backwards. We build first and say, if you build it, they will come, and then we build the roads later. We have a friend of mine, an associate, a couple of friends of mine that live out off Otterdale Road, and the road floods. They can't get out of their houses because we didn't fix the road. They put 2 great subdivisions out there, but the county didn't fix the road, nor do they have an end plan to fix it. We need to do a better job of making sure the infrastructure is right. We need to do a better job of talking with the people and finding out, what do you want? For instance, we live down in the southern part of the county, but we don't have a grocery store there. We go to Archer's to get gas or to get some groceries, or we go to the Exxon at Ivyville Road. So I don't want to kill the little stores either, but it'd be nice to have a grocery store down there. You go shopping and I have to go over the whole street around 10. But it's really about what the people want, right? So the comprehensive plan is there, and I look forward to working with the public to decide where we need to put things. That's the way it should be done. Thank you.
Just before Mike makes his final statement, I just wanted to, first of all, thank the candidates for number one, doing a good job answering questions, and number two, staying within the time limit. We really appreciate that. And for all of you who came here, I hope you enjoyed this chance to converse, kind of, with the candidates, and thank you for not applauding until we're all finished.
Okay, so we've come to the final section of our forum tonight. We want to give each candidate 5 minutes to make closing remarks, and at their choice, either they can also take questions from the audience if they so choose. So we're going to reverse the order from the initial drawing. So first up will be Shawan Mason, and then Kevin Carroll, and finally Rob Thompson. So Shawan, welcome to make your closing statement.
He's telling the Lord to make a closing statement like I'm in court. First of all, thank you all for allowing me to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to share my points of view and the opportunity to serve. I love Matoaca, and that means something to me. Born here, been here all of my life. My family's here. I've been to school here. The honor and privilege. My children are going to the same schools that I've attended. But it's sad to say that Matoaca right now we're missing a voice. There are things that are just going on, and we're saying things, but we're not being heard. Matoaca needs new leadership. Matoaca is vast, it is greatly diverse, and it's not a type of situation where one size fits all. but we need someone who will go on there and who will listen to the people, listen to the citizens, listen to the residents, give them the opportunity to voice their concerns, to voice the direction that they see the county is heading in. And then to not just listen, but to act upon what we hear, and not just allow developers and other persons to come in and to try to bully their way into just getting the citizens' voices to be avoided or just completely unheard. And when we think of Matoaca, it's vast. And if you think of it this way, Matoaca is made of many communities. And communities are made of families. Families are made of individuals. Strong individuals produce strong families, produce strong communities. That's a strong Matoaca. And we are better together. For years, and I've grown up here, there's always been a wedge in between the southern part and the western part. And we're one Matoaca. We're better together. All the opportunities that all of our children should be available to all of our kids in reference to education. All the opportunities that the comprehensive plan says that we should have, we should be able to avail ourselves of that. I am one who does not mind speaking up for the vulnerable. That's what I've been doing for the past 18 years. It doesn't matter if it's popular, if it's right, if it's what the people want, then that's what I will do. I will make myself available, and accountability is key. I don't like surprises, so if something comes my way, if I'm elected as your Board of Supervisor member, something comes my way, you better believe I want to hear what do my constituents think about it, and that is not something that will be rushed. And the fact that I love Matoaca shows that I'm not just here for some political gain, I'm not just here for a title. My children are here. A better Matoaca for my children means a better Matoaca for your children and for future generations to come. But I love this place, and I will do my best to serve you, and it will be my honor. Thank you.
Well, I too want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know you have many other things that we can be doing with our families right now, and I want to commend you for being engaged citizens in the community. Imagine if we had more people that got engaged like this, maybe we could solve bigger problems. So, a couple of things I wanted to go back to real quick. When we talked about the town hall meetings, I don't know if you all know this, but Kirk Cox actually does a telephone town hall where you can dial in and actually have a conversation, and it reaches thousands of people. And if we talk about doing the public town halls, then I'd also want to have the ability for it to be watched, so people can watch it at home and maybe call in with a question, as opposed to just having just the people there, because maybe someone couldn't leave the house because they had a couple of kids they had to take care of, right? So we need to make it more transparent from that perspective. So for 32 years, I've had the honor and privilege of serving you in the community, and I have been a fighter. I became a police officer because I don't like bullies. I don't like people picking on other people. I always wanted to stand up for the little guy. I've done it my whole life. I maybe got in too many fights as a little kid, I guess, because I was sticking up for people who were getting picked on. That's why I became so active in the FOP, because I wanted to fight for the rights of police officers, I wanted to fight for better benefits, and that's why I got involved in the General Assembly, to fight for people, to make sure we don't pass legislative issues that affect us. I'm a big constitutionalist, so fighting for your rights is what I've been doing. So many of you don't even know that we helped to defeat many gun bills last year that were bad, some were good. That's not the ones we defeated. But my point is, I've been sticking up for people in all of Chesterfield County for my time here. I've worked on some of the most serious cases in Chesterfield and brought justice for families who are victims of horrendous crimes. I have a track record of being a voice for the people. I've actually stood up in Board of Supervisors meetings. I've stood up in legislative issues downtown. I'm not afraid to take a stance, and I think usually my stance is right on what the people want. But if it's not, I'm not afraid to change it either. Because when you get elected, it's not about you. You're servant leader. You're there to represent the people in the community. If you're in it for something else, then you should go do something else. I don't have to run for the Board of Supervisors. I retired. I can go do something else. I want to continue to serve the community that I love. I have everything that I have in my life right now because the people of Chesterfield County gave me a job, they gave me a paycheck. And that's why I've always shopped Chesterfield County, because I believe I want to reinvest the money that people gave me from their hard tax dollars as a paycheck back in the community and those businesses. And I want to make sure, and I want to continue to protect you, your rights, and your homes by following the law. That's what I do. And so if given the opportunity, that's what I'm going to do for you. We have one person who's not here tonight, right? Why isn't he here? Why isn't he here giving himself at least the opportunity to see what you have to say? You should have been here. And I commend the other two candidates for doing the right thing, for coming here and voicing how we feel about certain issues and giving you the opportunity to judge us. Because that's what you're gonna do if we get elected, we're gonna get judged. We wanna make sure that we let you know that we're not afraid to listen to what you have to say, to take into account your thoughts and how things affect you at your house. So that's why I'm running, and I would hope that you consider checking out my website and contact me and with any questions that you may have, because I'll call you back. Thank you.
I'll echo what they said. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Life is hectic. We all have children, jobs, homes, and families around. So thank you. It is a big point. I would echo that at the next town hall or the next time there's a budget meeting, that everybody take that, try to fit that into your schedule also, to try to be there so you are represented in those town halls. You know, I saw problems 5 years ago in the schools, so I decided to run for the school board and try to make schools better. I had focused my energies on it. I put a lot of time into it, serving the district, serving the citizens of Matoaca. And by trying things different, we've accomplished a lot of different things. Ettrick Elementary was unaccredited for 5 years. They were gonna give the same exact plan to try to solve it. And I said, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So what do? We asked the principal, what do you need to be successful at Ettrick? She gave me a wish list. I went to the board. We got $210,000 out of a $780 million budget extra to Ettrick Elementary. In the second year, it became accredited, okay? Differentiated instruction, differentiated financing. That's one of the things that we have to do, and we have to look across the board, across the county also. We listened to the citizens, worked with the concerned citizens of Ettrick. Nancy Ross, who was here and left, came to us because we saw a huge dip in kindergartners at Ettrick Elementary, and even though we had a pre-K program. And she wanted to start a community-based pre-K program, and she came to us. She runs it, they got a teacher, and we gave her a learning cottage or a trailer. We helped her set it up, got power to it, got her a phone, it has a bathroom, and those kids, they meet 3 times a week with their teacher and Miss Ross overseeing it. That's the community wanting to get involved, seeing a void, and coming to their elected officials so they could get the elected officials behind them to help them solve a problem. We've done that. We've done it in Ettrick. It's paying dividends. We're excited about next year's class because the people that are trying to sign up are almost 1.5 to 2 times what we had last year. As we look across the county, you know, I've done redistricting, not quite finished with it, still gotta go out and work the Matoaca Elementary redistricting and the new Ettrick Elementary redistricting. But we started on the west side. Every time we added a new school, we did redistricting. We have gotten rid, with the redistricting that took place last year, we're able to get rid of, there's no trailers that are gonna be used for instruction at Grange Hall, at Woolwich, at Clover Hill, at Alberta Smith, at Ettrick, at Matoaca. We will have trailers at Winterpock. Why? Because for 2 years I've been trying to get a school at Magnolia Green. Because of all that growth, we have 9 trailers there and we're adding 4 more. There's gonna be 13 trailers next year and we'll probably add 4 more the next year. So we'll be at 17 to 20 trailers in 2 years. But the county plan and the guys down there in the planning, they said we don't need an elementary school to 2025 or 2027. Well, folks, when you look at a metric, you know, a metric that says 0.8 kids per household might work for an entire county, but it doesn't work when you look at the growth that was happening in that part of the county. So we were able to push through, finally, the new Mag Green School, which is going to be a 900-person school, and it's going to offload Winterpock. It's not going to open until September of 22. If we would have gotten that passed through last August, it would have been opening in September of 21 along with the other schools. That's what I mean about infrastructure. Too many times, we are too late to the table with infrastructure in Chesterfield County, whether it be roads, whether it be septic, sewage, whether it be schools. We have to be better with that. And if I'm elected to the board, I'm gonna take all the time that I devote now in the schools. There's 13 schools across the Matoaca District. I'm in them all the time. I know every principal, I know every assistant principal. Currently, I substitute teach in each school, and I give a teacher a Friday off so that she gets a 3-day weekend, because our teachers work hard. I can't give them too much more money, but I can give them a little free time by giving them a 3-day weekend, by going in and substituting. Allows me to learn just a little bit to walk in their shoes. And let me tell you, kindergarten is tough, tough. My day in kindergarten at Clover Hill Elementary wore me out. It was absolutely unbelievable. Next week I'm at middle school for the first time. We all know middle schoolers. Hormones and everything else changing, so I'm expecting that to be, Bailey Bridge next Friday, to be a very interesting time. I've dedicated the last 4 years to work in Matoaca and the Matoaca schools and getting what we need in Matoaca. And I will continue to work if on June 11th I'm selected the primary and then get to face off with Shawan in November and elected. I will continue to work just as hard as I have for the school system, for the county, and make sure that Matoaca receives what they're due. Thank you.
Okay, I want to echo Jack's sentiments, thanking the three of you for coming tonight. It's been really an informative forum, I think. And more so, I want to thank everyone here in the audience who came tonight, because filling this room up has really showed that there's a lot of people that are interested in what's going to be happening in the county in the future, and what will happen with our elections will determine what happens to the county. So thank you for coming. I want to mention a couple of meetings coming up. One planning commission meeting is coming up May 21st, next week. They're going to be discussing that sign ordinance that we heard about tonight. So if you're interested in that, you're welcome to come and make your comments. It'll be a public meeting at that time, and that's important to get your input there. The next night will be the Board of Supervisors meeting, and CCU is having a rally, I guess you'd call it, before the Board of Supervisors meeting. We're meeting at 5:15 outside, just to kind of remind the current board that we don't want to hand things to developers on a silver platter. We want input from the citizens and the community. So everyone's encouraged to bring a silver platter with a no on it. That's what we're going to show them before their meeting next week. If you're interested in CCU, we have a Facebook page, and we're hoping to post this meeting in full on the Facebook page. Should come up tonight or tomorrow. So you're welcome to visit that. You can share this meeting with anyone else, and you're welcome to join our group. Our goal and mission is to encourage community involvement, and that's what we've tried to do tonight. So I thank you for coming.